budget work and where we are now, including the detailed, not very detailed, but summarized inter-sector consultation that we had. After that, we'll give you now a glimpse into what is projected as the budget for education, the issues that we have there, gaps that we see, and what we actually recommend. And then the final will be on the child protection, which then will be given an opportunity to interrogate. And all that we are combining. We are making a joint presentation to the Parliamentary Budget and Appropriations Committee, because today is the final day. So all that we shall have shared with you here, know that they are en route to Parliament because they need to be considered there. And they're saying this is not the first and the last engagement. So we want us just to go through together. And we'll also give you a chance for question, then the Q&A session. And after that, I'm told the hotel has just become generous. They're saying, chai haikuwa ile ya nguvu sana, so wamesema lunch pia tutakula. Really so? So having said that, the first 10 or so minutes presentation on walking us through where we have come from with this work, so that you know where we are. It's done by Elijah, Don, he did introduce himself. Yeah, but we have the team members around here. Whoever gets a chance will have to introduce themselves first. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. I will take about 10 minutes. My name is Bonnie Elijah. I work for Visual Aids. So the reason why we're showing this, you can see here, as at 23rd of August, the budget process already began. You see the country right now, people are like, the budget. But this thing started in this circular. So when we are here, we are looking into things being done as per guidelines. So the same government of Kenya, through National Treasury, gave us circular. Perhaps those who do not have this document, it's going to be shared with you. And this gave very specific guidance on how the budget should be done. So where we are now, ideally, Parliament should be looking at how things been done as per the guidance that were given. So one of the things that we are looking into was this budget done as per the guidance. Now, the critical thing in this guidance is that it shows how the resources were supposed to be prioritized. I'll just quickly show you a section here that is important for us. Okay. When you're the new CS, you will be hearing the CS talking about something called zero-based budgeting. Now, zero-based budgeting, if you see what it means here, it requires that budgets are justified afresh. So the word zero-based budgeting, what is it? So according to Treasury guidelines, basically all expenditures and programs must be justified afresh. And a lot of things we are finding here, there is no justification of these expenditures. Because you see the way the budget is presented, you cannot tell. You know, people are complaining, this is so much budget, this is minimum budget. So much budget requires justification, right? So we are supposed to ask ourselves, when something is being allocated, where is the justification? So every program, don't forget about ministry, every program or project has to be a justification. And importantly means zero-based budget was an opportunity for people to bring in things that were not the previous budget. Now that's something I wanted us to appreciate, because it's from Treasury. Now, the details, if you're asking where is the problem, why is the problem a lot of budget discussions? When you say sector working groups, that's where budgets are done, discussions happen there. But there's a specific guidance here that sector working groups, let me just read it verbatim. Sector working groups are therefore required to evaluate all the when we say a huge money has been, a budget has been allocated to a particular sector, how was it costed? What methodology was used? Because we are seeing figures, but behind those figures, that what we call various costing margins. Now, there are questions here of principles. Principle of efficiency, effectiveness, and economy of public spending. And I want to point out this sector working should eliminate wasteful expenditure and pursue priorities which are aimed at for where the budget should go. The budget should go to priorities that safeguard livelihoods, creating jobs, reviving business, and economic recovery. So then the thing is, if at the sector working group, we already guided that we eliminate wasteful expenditure. So now when you are seeing a budget, and people are saying, this budget has elements of wasteful expenditure, that answer lies with the colleagues in the sector working group. So when you are seeing people saying this budget line is not necessary, we are likely to waste resources on a particular line. We need to ask ourselves, where did that emerge from? Because guys were guided to avoid wasteful expenditure. Now, the criteria for money being allocated. So if you have a criteria for how the budget should be distributed, how we as a country, are we going with that criteria? Very, very clear. Government priorities is number one. That is the better priorities. Number two, of course, medium-term plan and Vision 2030, presidential directives and cabinet decisions. So sometimes when we say a budget is to implement a particular presidential directive, where is that directive written? It's important to have that directive written somewhere. Then completing ongoing projects, job creation is still emphasized here. So we should be asking ourselves, how is this budget going to contribute to job creation? That's another criteria that was supposed to be followed. And then of course, the mandates of different ministries. I want us to pay keen attention to number 9, implementation of the Constitution. How is this budget taking forward the implementation of the Constitution? Remember, a number of times we are going for public participation, fine, but there are certain things already in the Constitution that must be implemented, especially the Article 43 rights, the economic and social rights. So when you go further, we have a costing model. So it is good to find out, is this costing model being used? How do you arrive at the various figures that are being seen? Because the budget is huge, but behind those huge figures, there are certain models around. So for purposes of our meeting today, like Boaz has already guided us, where are we coming from? So the context for this meeting is a specific provision we wanted to draw your attention to, so that we get the context of our meeting. When you talk about education and child protection, for the first time in this country, the National Treasury gave very specific guidelines that budgets are supposed to be gender responsive and child sensitive budgeting. So the matter now is, are the budgets before Parliament gender responsive and child sensitive? So the National Treasury guided ministries, departments, and agencies to ensure that the budget is gender responsive and child sensitive. So as we are here and we talk about children, and of course look at the guiding line number 53. Children make 46% of the population in this country. And therefore, all ministries, departments, and agencies were guided to adopt what we call child-sensitive budgeting and ensure that resources prioritize the needs of children in Article 53 of the Constitution. Now, this is very clear that we have several rights in the Constitution, but specific to children, Treasury was very deliberate that can the ministries allocate budgets that help us to implement Article 52 of the Constitution. And that's where the right to free and compulsory basic education is, and of course, other rights. And if you go to line number 54, ministries, departments, and agencies were to identify interventions that address gender inequalities and children needs. So when we go to the budget graph, we are not just going to which ministry or department had more money. We're also looking into how these budgets, as well prepared, complied to what the ministry had given. And where are we coming from as a civil society in this process? We have been part of this process, and there are specific dates that we have been engaging, and I'll just to remind us that there are specific dates by which specific things were supposed to be accomplished. And this is a calendar of events. So as early as last year, for those of us who are at KICC in November, you can see item 6.2, public sector hearing. So in November last year, all ministries, departments, and agencies were already presenting their budget proposals. And most of us in this room analyzed those draft budget proposals, and we made submissions, both oral and written. We also had children, for those who are in KCC, you might have remembered, that are children who came and gave oral and written submissions. Now, upon giving those submissions to the sector working groups, budget drafts that were presented, we have been still part of the journey. So when the budget policy statement was taken to Parliament sometime in February, again, we analyzed the budget policy statement just to track whether the things we recommended in 2024 November had been taken forward to the budget policy statement. And then we gave written submissions. So we gave written submissions both to the executive, to the National Treasury, then we gave written submissions to Parliament. So when the budget policy statement was finally approved, the sectors were given sector ceilings, for which they had to go back now and do the detailed budget. Now, there's a gap that we wanted to point out. We are for the opinion that county governments are doing better than national government when it comes to public participation. Because county governments take public participation up to the ward level sometimes. But the budget before us, if you want to ask yourselves, were the people involved at the constituency level who are face-to-face engagement? The answer is no. We are only aware of one meeting that was done last year in KICC, which we participated. And therefore, those who are not able to travel to Nairobi did not really have the opportunity. Like the children who came were to be assisted by NGOs to come. Now, the budget that is in Parliament, between the time the budget policy statement was approved and the time the detailed budget was taken, we also have not seen another public engagement. Because ideally, if the public gave views in November, those views should have been validated. So when we are asking ourselves today, where are we? The evidence that we have analyzed, just to conclude, this is, we picked what is the Bunge. So Bunge has done a very good job. All the documents that has all the government budget information is properly labeled and we can access it. So there are huge documents here that we really need to look at. But I wanted to point out one as I conclude and give it over back to Boaz. The question before us again is that the budget we're talking about, colleagues, is 1,000 pages. So we need to ask ourselves how we are supposed to interact with 1,000 pages and engage. And we've seen a practice where people are engaging in the sector or departments of interest, but this is a 1,000-page document. So the figures that we normally see, which we need to now try and make sense out of, are not as detailed as what in the subsequent pages. So when you see these summaries of departments, when you see these votes make more sense when you go into the details of what we call programs and sub-programs. So what we'll be sharing here is part of analysis of the detailed information in the budget as opposed to the summarized information. This is important. Now, when you go to those details, let me give you an example of one of the centers we'll be looking at here to see what happens. So when you go to the Department for Basic Education, for example, and you want to see the details, you begin to see that sometimes we run into the figures, but we don't look at what the money is supposed to do. So where to find what the money is supposed to do is this section, written key performance indicators. And this is where the numbers are. So something that does not have a target may not have money allocated to it. So what we're supposed to ask ourselves is, when we are seeing budgets in certain ministries, what we should be asking ourselves, where's the evidence of what this money is supposed to do? What the money is supposed to do is in this template where we have the output and the targets. For example, if you see primary school, the number of children that are supposed to be reached with the free primary education funding is indicated here. And you can see the subsequent years, the numbers are increasing. So when you're looking at the figure and the numbers, we have to read different documents. Now, when there's a gap in this template, if the target is not clear, chances are you will have money without clarity of what the money is supposed to do. So that's something that we wanted to point out. The second thing we wanted to point out to you, we have junior school and senior school. But the way the budget is presented, if you see here, program 1 is primary education, for example. And then there is a second program known as secondary education. So what we need to ask ourselves, if the country has moved into primary level, junior level, senior level, and then now we have the current secondary school, why is it that the junior school is not properly put in the budget? Now, those are things that if you don't look at the details, it will be very difficult to separate how much money is going to primary education and how much money is going to junior. So that's a budget presentation issue. So there's a linkage between these targets and the amount. The second state department that is of interest, which I wanted to show you, we have a new state department that should be of interest to you.
Just summarize in 2 minutes.
So this new state department, known as the State Department of Children Welfare, this was not there the previous budget. So this is a new state department that is also part of what we are going to discuss here today for 2 reasons. When you have a new state department, you're supposed to demonstrate exactly what this new state department should do and how much resources it has. So when you look at this already, you begin to see that if you're not careful, I want to take you back to what the guideline was, just to show you the guideline and the department. The guideline is, make sure the budgets are child sensitive, right? So the only way to see whether the budgets are child sensitive is to pay attention to this new state department, because it's a state department for children welfare services. And if you see the targets for this new state department, you begin to see now, if you are talking about budgets being child responsive, the program-based budget has details. For example, okay, just to give an illustration, you see one here, we have National Council for Children Services. So the National Council for Children Services, for example, that is created by the Children Act, if you look at what the money will do, then there's a lot of details you need to look for. For example, we have a whole institution that is supposed to just sensitize people, sensitize its officers, and then appoint. Now, so when you look at the entire budget, so when you have a problem with the targets, that's what results into minimal budgets. Are we together? So if you don't demonstrate what you want to do properly, you are likely to be given very minimal. Because you cannot ask for more if what you want to do is little. So to conclude, colleagues, apart from this document, the program-based budget document, the other two documents that are important. If you go to what I was just showing you here, here we have, for the kind of discussion we're going to have here, there are several documents. Now, we have the recurrent expenditure book. There are several volumes. We have development, there are several volumes. And then you have the program-based budget. So if you put all these documents together for you to understand the government budget of Kenya, we are talking about over 3,000 pages. So any citizen who really wants to scrutinize, because everyone has an equal right to scrutinize the budget. So if you take the program-based budget document of the table, over 1,000 pages, then they take the recurrent vote book, the two of them, they then take development vote book, the three of them, the citizen is confronted with about 300,000 page document. It we are saying that if the children should engage, so you can imagine if an adult, some of you guys here, has 3,000 page document, what does that mean for a child who equally has a right to engage? So thank you very much, and I have it over to Boaz.
Thank you. We normally don't clap, but allow me to clap. What he has done, this is part of what should be done by our ministry officials, just to keep the public always aware and entice them to engage. And thank you for taking us through. All those steps, the organizations represented here and those who are not necessarily here have been engaging in. And what now we are about to share with you, and I would like to ask, we are starting with education compliment, if we could have these seats that were reserved for them, so that Cornelius could join up. Is it from here? Yes, today, yourself. And Cornelius and Abu could join up. Yes, there are seats here. Don't carry your seats. Feel free, you can even go to the back there. Nothing wrong. Because I think because of the video, they would like to capture from this. You are the pretested, this is the best side, isn't it?
Yeah, and located that area.
Okay, thank you so much. The water, those who haven't had water, please give them here. So we'll just do this presentation, and maybe if you have questions or areas you require clarification, please just take them down and just drop them, and you'll be given that chance. After that, then we'll come to child-specific areas.
So who's joining us at the background?
Just here. Abu's Kapandele. So when you're ready, you just tell us. Are you set?
Yeah.
Yes, so the team that is leading the presentation on the education analysis is our working group. And I think the lead person here, Cornelius, would just guide us out. Thank you, welcome.
So good morning.
Good morning.
So we are going to issue a statement which is an extraction of our analysis of the budget estimate 2025-2026. Having looked at the document that is before Parliament, the budget estimate, today also happens to be the last day for submitting any memorandums. So Eliu Bora will be submitting his memorandum later in the day, but here is just an extract of the key concerns and issues that we feel the budget committee, and by extension the education committee of the National Assembly, should look into. So it's a 3 or 4 page statement to be read by myself and a few colleagues here. So these are the key issues and recommendations on the Kenya's education budget for 2025-2026 financial year. Okay. So I'm Cornelius Odwor, Kenya Human Rights Commission, and also a member of the Lumbora Working Group.
My name is Maxwell Magawi, Elimu Bora Working Group.
My name is David Karani, Elimu Bora Working Group.
Boaz Waruku, Elimu Bora Working Group.
So this is a statement. Kenya's 2025-2026 budget, long expected to be a facilitator for inclusive quality education, has been turned into an inhibitor to access of the right to education for millions of children and youth. As Kenya's parliament closes the window for public participation through submission of memorandum and public hearing on today, that is 20th May, the budget policy statement and the budget estimates point at a disheartening situation to the public education sector in Kenya for the next financial year, for the following reasons. One, in our assessment of...
Okay,
that's fine.
So where do we start?
We'll just start afresh.
Energy levels, man. Okay. So this is our statement. Kenya's 2025-2026 budget, long expected to be a facilitator for inclusive quality education, has been turned into an inhibitor to access of the right to education for millions of children and youth. As Kenya's parliament closes the window for public participation through submission of memorandum and public hearings on 20th May 2025, the budget policy statement and the budget estimates point at a disheartening situation to the public education sector in Kenya for the next financial year. As a Libora, we are concerned that over 1 million learners are likely to be excluded or are excluded from the budget, whereas the government of Kenya Economic Survey 2025 indicates that 8.2 million learners were in the primary schools in 2024. The financial year 2026-2025 budget estimate has only targeted to benefit 6.97 million learners, implying that 1.3 million learners have been left out. So the number of learners in primary, junior, and secondary schools, as credibly documented in the Economic Survey of 2025, should be used as the basis for budgeting. If not that, then these 1.3 appear to be left out. Efforts must be similarly be made to mop out and bring to school more than 2.5 million learners out of school. This is according to the UNESCO report of 2024. Save the Children and UNICEF reports estimate that 3.5 million to be the actual number of children out of school. Our second concern is with regard to the capitation to primary schools, which we feel is not adequate. There is an allocation of 12.78 billion under the recurrent vote for free primary education. According to our analysis, there should be an allocation of 41 billion for the capitation for free primary education. This is computed at a rate of 5,000 per learner for the 8.2 million learners. So there's a big deficit. Whereas there's an allocation of 12.7 billion, we feel 41 billion is what is adequate to take care of the capitation at the primary school level. We are equally concerned that there is no money for improving the water situation in schools. the government of Kenya Water, Sanitation and Hygiene in School Strategy 2024-2029 conservatively indicates that an estimated 25% of rural primary schools lack adequate water facility. Our interaction with many primary, junior and secondary schools in all the constituencies in Kenya show that most schools do not have access to clean and safe water. Sadly, there are no targets in the current budget on the number of schools whose water situation is to be improved, implying that no money has been allocated. Notably, the Wash in Schools strategy assigns the Ministry of Education the responsibility to plan and budget for water in schools. So our recommendation is that all schools with no access to clean and safe water to be targeted and included in the budget. So I leave the next session to be read by my colleague Karani.
My name is David Karani. I'm also a member of Elimo Bora. I'll be handling the next. School meals. School meals budget reduced and learners will only get meals for 21 days in a year. In 2024, the budget for the year, for the financial... School meals budget reduced. Learners will only get meals for 21 days in a year. In 2024, the budget for the year 2024-2025 was submitted in the National Assembly, had a zero budget for school meals. As a result of public outcry, the National Assembly ensured that cash 3 billion was allocated for school meals. The second budget supplementary of year 2024-2025 increased the school meals budget from 3 billion to 3.9 billion. The budget for 2025-2026 has reduced the school meals budget to 3 billion, a glaring gap in the budget submitted in the National Assembly. These figures indicate that school meals for year 2024-2025, which is 3.6 billion and not 3.9 billion. This is the second supplementary budget for the year 2024-2025. Coincidentally, the target number of learners has increased from 2.6 million year 2024-2025 to 2.8 in the year 2025, while the budget has been increased, the budget has been allocated is reduced. They've increased the number of learners they're targeting and reduced the budget, which actually I don't know how that makes sense. We've increased the number of learners you're targeting, but increased the budget. In the year 2025-2026, the cash 3 billion, which was to target learners being 2.8 million, which implies that each of the learners will only receive meals for 21 days out of the 180 days in a year. So they'll only receive meals for 21 days, and actually learners will go to school for 181 days in the year at the rate of 50 shillings per meal. Recommendation, allocate at least 25 billion for school meals for the target of 2.8 million learners, and at least 1 meal a day at school during the 180 days at the rate of 50 shillings a day. At least 1 meal for the 180 days. That will be at least good for the learners to stay in school. So number 5, unclear budget details for junior and senior secondary school. Where there exists primary school, junior secondary school and senior secondary school learners programs expected to begin in 2024, and the current secondary school in the budget details have lumped up information in the key performance, indicate targets amount of money allocated under primary school education programs, making it difficult to ascertain with clarity which has been included in the budget for junior secondary school and expected expected junior secondary school, senior secondary school. So establish clear programs, clear budget, establish very clear programs and budget vote for junior secondary school and senior secondary schools in the budget, and demonstrate which with utmost clear budget allocation for junior secondary school and senior secondary school in the manner that there is clarity in the budget allocation for primary school, so that people can actually be able to know which monies go where. Recruitment of teachers. While there is existence a court decision which outlawed the recruitment of intern teachers, Forum of Good, this is a case that was taken to court by Forum of Good Governance and the Kenya Human Rights Commission versus the TSC, 2021 petition 1 of the year 2025, which focused on the recruitment of 18,000 interns. Further, there is no clarity and specific number of teachers to be recruited for primary schools, junior secondary school or senior secondary school. No mention of retooling for secondary school teachers or preparation for senior school in the 2026 and beyond. So there is no clear monies that have been set aside for this, so you cannot tell how much is going to recruit teachers and how much is going to retool teachers. Because actually, as you mentioned earlier, there was an order clearly which was out there. It is still existing. So the Teacher Service Commission, this is teachers recruitment management. The budget for teachers recruitment management in primary school has been reduced from 209 billion in 2025 to 2026 to cash 208 billion in the financial year 2025-2026. But there are no details to show the reduction, the ratio of reduction. The budget for teachers resource management in secondary school has been increased from 141.9 billion in the year 2024-2025 budget to 172.6 billion in the year 2025-2026, but there is no clarity on the specific targets to be achieved with the increase. So they're just increasing numbers without targets. So it can just be those cases where you don't know how many they're targeting, but there's a clear budget for the target there is. While there existence a court decision that outlawed recruitment of interns, the year 2025-26 has focused on recruiting 18,000 intern teachers. Further, there is no specification, clarity and specification number of teachers to be recruited for primary school and junior secondary school. So what are we recommending? Recommendation for teachers resource management, budget details to provide specific manner that shows the number of teachers and the amount of money allocated to recruiting and employing teachers on a permanent and pensionable basis. For primary school, for junior secondary school, and for senior schools. Thank you. Magawi will continue.
He's okay? He's okay? Praise the Lord. Now I'll continue to read from this uncomfortable reading of Lamentation. That is the budgetary situation in our education sector. So I'll specifically be touching on the state of tertiary education. So in 3 segments, I'll look at the teachers training colleges, then our vocational education and technical institutions, so basically polytechnics, and then the universities as we conventionally know it. So very quickly, for the teachers training colleges, our biggest issue with the budgetary situation as it is right now is the whole problem of discrimination from loans. We realize that the students in the teacher training colleges are yet to be included on the conversation around health. So that's a problem to us. And the statement reads, unlike their counterparts training to teach in secondary schools who are being targeted to receive loans for fees, students in primary teacher training colleges continue to face difficulties in paying fees, while the government has also denied them a chance to access loans from the Higher Education Loan Board. They have never been targeted for HELB loans or any other form of funding for their fees. So then the question is that training and the niche within the education sector less legitimate? Or what considerations have been there to exclude them from loan and other funding that can facilitate their learning? So then the recommendation is as simple as their inclusion as part of beneficiaries for higher education funds, both in terms of loans and grants. So they're not lesser students. The funding framework that attracts benefits, that benefits other learners in the tertiary realm should also cover them. So basically that's the logic that you're floating. And then on the issue of vocational education and technical training institution, we have a problem with clarity. Clarity on the capitation for learners. The figures seem to be all over the place, and that's a big problem for us. So in the budget books, there are no targets of learners expected to benefit from the capitation of TVET institutions. There's an allocation of 41.5 billion for the TVET program, which was an increase of 7 billion from the initial 34.5 billion in the financial year 24-25, with the specific sub-programs being technical accreditation and quality assurance, technical trainers and instructor services, special needs in technical and vocational education. I think that's very central. Then infrastructure development and expansion. However, there are no specific targets to demonstrate whether there's any capitation to be sent directly to institutions. So what do we recommend? We recommend that there is need for clarity if there is indeed any capitation for students in TVET institutions, and show the amount of money per student and the targeted number of students per year, just like the case for junior, primary, junior, and secondary schools. We want clarity in terms of figures. Accounting is about figures, budget allocation is about figures, and it's missing within the vocational training sector. So it's something that quickly needs to be bridged. Then lastly, on the funding for university. Now this is the university in the conventional sense of the word, talking about the University of Nairobi, the JK Watts and KUs of this world. So the meager increment in university funding is insignificant and has not factored in the following. The 72 billion pending bills for public universities, either whole in part, no evidence of commitment to clear the same. So we ask that this be factored in the budget to forestall closures and redundancies. So what we're saying is that whatever addition we are seeing is a drop in the ocean in comparison to the sorry funding state in the universities. So then we need to be realistic in terms of our genuineness to get the universities out of the funding mess they are in, to forestall the ugly possibilities of some universities closing down, as we already witnessed. And then capitation to public universities are reduced. E.g., Egerton University capitation has been slashed. So clearly, the state is speaking from both ends of the mouth. At a time when the university is needing money increased, when there's so much struggle, then the last thing we'll want to do is to reduce capitation. Ordinarily, we need to increase the capitation. And then third one, 5.2 billion being for the 2017-2021 collective bargaining agreement arrears plus 20% employer contribution to the pension scheme. So that's totaling to 8.8 billion should be provided for. So basically the cat and mouse game between the state and the lecturers and basically the training community, it needs to come to an end. We cannot be every day coming back to the table to talk about the implementation of collective bargaining agreements. So then that is something that, you know, we need to be more genuine about. So basically the ministry, of course the state through the Ministry of Education needs to be more genuine about. Let us call it over and done with the conversation around collective bargaining agreement, but the state sticking to its end of the bargain. So in this particular case, the 2017-2021 collective bargaining agreement. And then the 4.3 billion contained in the supplementary budget of 2024-2025, which was approved but never remitted to universities as part of meeting cost of 2021-2025 collective bargaining agreement. This needs to be provided for. On this, maybe the government is coming out as a caretaker who, you know, entrusted to feed the baby. You decide to smear food on the baby's mouth and then eat. But then you say that the baby has eaten. So then you cannot make commitment without following through. That's a problem there. So we want the government for this particular, in this particular state, to also, you know, follow through its end of the bargain. You make a commitment, then you have to follow through it. And then lastly, the 2.7 billion being part of the implementation of the 2021-2025 collective bargaining agreement should be provided for as committed by the Inter-University Councils, Consultative Forum, Ministry of Education, and the AG. This goes back to the third concern. The same issue, collective bargaining agreement. Why are we having agreements if we cannot follow through them? Okay? So then let's call it quits with this cat and mouse games that has been the collective bargaining agreement by simply, I end by reiterating, let the government stick to its end of the bargain. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know whether there could be areas that require clarification before we bring the caucus that will be dealing with the child protection issues. Okay. I'm also being reminded that we need a Kiswahili version. Is that okay? So if you can just do a summary of that. Thank you.
Yes. Asanteni sana. Kwa majina tena naitwa David Karani, mmoja wa kikundi cha elimu bora. Nitafanya tu kupitia kwa ufupi mambo ambayo tumeyaona katika bajeti, mambo ambayo ni tumeona ni kama tuyagusie kama kikundi ambacho tuna sukuma mambo ya elimu. Tumeona kwamba bunge inafunga leo maoni walioagiza wananchi kwamba walete maoni, na wananchi walipeleka maoni, na sisi kama kikundi tuliangalia mambo kadhaa kwa bajeti. Na jambo la kwanza tuliloona ambalo la tuhusu kwa sana ni kwamba bajeti imewacha wanafunzi kama milioni 1 bila kuhudumiwa. Tunaona kwamba katika takwimu za serikali kutoka survey inasema kwamba kuna wanafunzi milioni 8.2 ambao wako katika shule, na bajeti imetolewa ya wanafunzi milioni 6 peke yake. Kwa hivyo tunaona kuna wanafunzi milioni 1 ambao watakosa kupata wajawekwa katika bajeti ya nchi. Vile vile pia tunaona fedha za capitation hazitoshi. Tunaona kwamba zile fedha ambazo zimepeanwa ni bilioni 12, na tunasema kwamba hizi fedha ambazo zahitajika ili kuhakikisha kila mwanafunzi anapata elimu ya bure na elimu ambayo yaweza kumsaidia hapo mbeleni, yahitaji bilioni 41 billion to ensure that kila mwanafunzi anapata elimu sawa. Vile vile tunaona katika hii bajeti hakuja kuwa na hawajaweza kuweka bajeti kando ya kuhakikisha kwamba kuna maji na vifaa kama choo katika shule zetu. Kwa lugha ya kimombo wanaita wash. There is no budget for this. So kwa hivyo naona kuna bajeti ambayo imewekwa kushughulikia mambo ya maji na mambo ambayo yanasaidia wanafunzi katika kuwa na hygiene nzuri shuleni. Vile vile tuangalia bajeti ya vyakula. Tunaona ile bajeti ambayo imepeanwa itawalisha wanafunzi kwa muda wa siku 21 peke yake. tukijua muda wa shule, wanafunzi wanaenda shule for 180 days. So the budget that has been allocated can only feed learners for 21 days. Kwa hivyo tunasema kwamba waongeze bajeti, waipe bilioni 25 ili mwanafunzi aweze kupata angalau chakula siku moja kwa hizi siku 180 days, at least they get a meal. Kwa mambo ya shule tuangalia kwamba hakuna bajeti, there's no clear lines. Huwezi sema bajeti gani ipi imepeanwa katika shule ya junior secondary school na senior secondary school. Kwa hivyo naambia serikali kwamba kukuwe na fedha ambazo zaonekana hizi fedha kwa uwazi, kwamba hizi fedha za kwenda katika shule ya junior secondary school na ingine inaenda katika senior secondary school, ili tuweze kukuwa na utofauti. Kwa recruitment ya walimu tunaona kwamba kuna shida, kwa sababu naona kikundi cha Forum for Good Governance na Kenya Human Rights Forum for and Human Rights walikwenda kotini na wakapata kupewa uamuzi kwa koti kwamba kuajiri walimu wale wanaitwa interns, it's something that should be there. Kwa hivyo wanafaa washughulikie ili jambo, kuhakikisha kwamba fedha zinazopeanwa kwa kuhakikisha kwamba walimu wameajiriwa kazi katika permanent and pensionable terms are actually considered. Tunaangalia pale walimu, wanafunzi wale ambao wanasomea ualimu, hakuna fedha ambazo wamepewa. Kwa hivyo tunaona wamewekwa kando, na tunajua pale vile vile pia wale ni watu ambao tunahitaji sana, wale ambao katika teachers training colleges. They are people we really need in this this day and age. Tunaona pia university funding, katika university funding kuna fedha ambazo zahitajika kuhakikisha kwamba madeni ya vyuo vikuu vimelipwa, na pia ili kuhakikisha kwamba hizi vyuo havijafungwa. Tunaona pia kunahitajika 72 billion ili tuweze kulipa madeni ambayo yamebaki ili vyuo zifungwe. Tunaona pia pale capitation ile yapewa katika university, Egerton University imeondolewa. Hili ni jambo ambalo tunaona si jambo la haki. Ni hayo tu kwa ufupi.
Shukran. Allow me to let the team representing the child protection to come over here. Dr. News will be taking the lead in that, so that the questions that we have concerns, I think we can just clarify after that collectively. I'm just looking at the time, and I got the time as well, so that up to one is what we are committed to. So, colleagues. Just come quickly, please. Yes, please just introduce yourself, then we'll start. Thank you. Are we okay there? Are we okay over there? Yeah, yes. Okay.
Okay. Is it good afternoon? Good afternoon, members of the fourth estate, which we belong. It's a pleasure to speak, to talk to you about child welfare and well-being in this country. So I'm just going to read this statement, and then we can have a conversation later. 46%, let that sink in, 46% of Kenyans. Oh, sorry, I've been told we need to introduce ourselves. Sorry. Let's start from here.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Atulo Joseph. I work at Mtoto News.
My name is Jennifer Kaberi. I work at Mtoto News.
My name is Rosbella Njeje. I work at Mtoto News.
My name is Dennis Mwendwa. I work at Mtoto News.
My name is Patience. I work at Mtoto News.
Okay. I'll start the statement. So as I was saying, 46% of the Kenyan population are made up of persons below the age of 18. If we are to go for elections today, with so many political parties, and you have the Children Democratic Party or something, guess who's gonna win? The Children Democratic Party, because they are the majority. Okay, we have Article 53 that provides for children's rights. However, unfortunately, only 11 billion Kenya shilling has been provided in this current budget estimate for child welfare services. As much as we appreciate the government giving us a new state department, and yay, State Department of Child Welfare Services, the State Department is highly, highly, highly under budgeted. And this 11 billion is equivalent to 260 Kenya shilling per child per year. Hata kama nikula madondo, is 260 shillings enough, you know, for the whole year to provide counseling, reconciliation, child participation, 260 shilling per child. Therefore, we are requesting the government to do the following.
These are our recommendations. I'll go through the financial recommendations. Now, it is important for us to acknowledge that the National Council for Children's Services is a vital department when it comes to taking care of the children's welfare. Now, this department has 24 mandates as outlined in the Children Act, and these mandates cannot be achieved with the current budget estimated at only 81 million. We are recommending an increase of the budget with 70 million to enable the council to increase county offices from current 5 in 47 counties to 47, and enable the council to provide oversight to children's services, as well as develop important legal frameworks such as child participation guidelines and sensitize communities on the legal framework. Now, the current budget, as Jennifer just elaborated, provides 260 shillings for every single child for an entire year. Ladies and gentlemen, you all agree with me that this is too little. I understand children are small, but we do not, we don't need to give them small monies because they are small. We also want to highlight that even though children are this small, they should not have a small budget. Considering the inaction to child protection cost in this country, which is over 10.8 billion US dollars, which is 100 times more than the budget allocated for this department. We therefore recommend an increase of 4.5 billion budget allocation to the Directorate of Children's Services. This amount will provide the following. 1.4 billion to support field operation through AIE to the 47 counties, and 336 sub-counties to cover operational costs, including fuel, airtime, internet, printing, and the vehicles. You cannot be going all around looking for children to rescue them, to take charge of their lives, taking care of the guidance and counseling, even picking the children from, dangerous zones, and you have little money. This department needs an increase in their budget. Now, 600 million to support care reform implementation to cover case management, family tracing, child and family assessment, reunification, reintegration, gatekeeping mechanisms, and follow-up. You agree with me, these are very vital things that should be done for children, and we do need to increase this budget. 600 million to address prevention and response to violence against children, noting that 46.7% of children in Kenya experience some form of violence, 46.7%. Before they hit age of 18, okay? 23% of girls and 6.4% of boys experience sexual violence, ladies and gentlemen. 48% of boys and 30% of girls experience physical violence. 22.9% of girls below 18 years enter child marriage. 14.8% of teen pregnancies are experienced with children between 15 to 19 years. We do need to increase the budget. Now, we also recommend 500 million to support child participation. We need to include the voices of children in things that we do that affect the children's lives, okay? Now, this child participation will help in roles including hosting of the Kenya Children Assembly in every sub-county, child participation in budget and planning, process at the county and national level, child participation in law-making process and in vital development programs such as climate action. Without the voice of the child, we may not be able to understand the problem the child is experiencing. We are therefore advocating for children, this amount being added so that children are able to actively give their opinion on matters that affect them. We also suggest 400 million to support positive parenting training, to equip parents with essential skills in nonviolent discipline, communication, and emotional regulation, fostering safer family environment. Family is the place where children find warmth. If we keep using parenting methods that are not positive, we are destroying our children and we are destroying the population for tomorrow. Therefore, it is vital for us to add this amount. We also recommend 1.29 billion to support to increase the number of children officers in sub-county levels. This is informed by the recent study on social service workforce on, for child protection. 40% of authorized posts are vacant, 40%. We do need to add this money so that these officers are increased, because they are very important in ensuring the welfare of the child is taken care of. I hand it over to my colleague again to pick it from there.
So we are not asking for money only. We are asking for reforms in the State Department. Okay, we have a new State Department with old clothes. You know, the new wine, new skin kind of cut thing. That's what we are seeing. And this has had a huge impact in the current budget allocation. So we are requesting the new statement is welcome. However, it needs clear separation, because right now, even in the budget estimate, if you go to the budget, what my colleague was showing earlier, we have two departments joined together. So we have the social welfare and the social development in the same budget. That means the 11 billion I have noted is for the two departments, not for social welfare. So if you check for social welfare, that budget is like less than 4 million. Okay? So we need like a clear. And then we are also requesting that a department and a program, so for this year, so the next year we can have a budget allocation on child participation. Okay, as I said, 46% are below the age of 18. And if you don't have a child participation department, we will not be able to involve them meaningfully. Okay, so we are requesting a department on child participation and ending violence against children. This is very important because the Kenyan government has made commitment after commitment after commitment on ending violence against children, but we don't have a concerted effort to ensuring that violence is ended. And if we can have like a program, a department with funding, with human resource, okay, specifically for ending violence, we're going to see an end violence. And then one of the biggest gaps in the current budget is the indicators are not aligned. Okay, you find one, like for example, there was one on care reform. Okay, they're talking about care reform, but it is not aligned to the budget. Okay, so the budget is not, the indicator is not available, but there is a strategic plan of 2022 to 2032 that says that Kenya has to move from institutionalized care to alternate care, that's home-based care or community-based care. But you don't have an indicator of that. How are you going to budget for something that is not available in the budget? So we are requesting that there should be a relook of the current budget and indicators. We are concerned that there is a small fund that you guys don't know, probably might know about. It's called the Victim Support Fund. It's allocated year after year after year for the last 5 years. It has not been operationalized. Very unfortunate. And you have just said 1 in 3 children in Kenya are abused. So our recommendation, where is the money going to come from? Why not reallocate, before they work on the operationalizing of this fund, reallocate that money to the Directorate of Children's Services. They need the money, okay? I work with a few children officers, and they get money from their own pockets to go and rescue children. Okay, how many of us can get? I know how much salary they get. Okay, so you go check how much they get. It's very little. They get money from their own pockets to go and do this service. And there's some fund, 32 million, just staying and chilling somewhere in a bank because it has not been in operation. So our recommendation, instead of that money sitting and chilling, why don't we put that money to the Directorate of Children's Services? Let's give those money to children officers in the counties for them to be able to use. And then there's another fund. It's called the Child Welfare Fund. Okay, it has been provided for in Section 12 of the Children's Act. we are requesting that this fund be, we are not asking, we're saying start small. Let's start by 10 million, okay? And let's see how much, what difference it can be able to do. And finally, again, I'm going to give numbers now. 26 million Kenyans are below the age of 18 years, making them the majority. Although the Treasury has provided for child-sensitive budgeting guidelines, it's unfortunate they are not able to interact in these processes. Why? One, there is no, this, we have just been told 1,000 pages. Who reads that? Okay, who reads that? Okay, number two, there is no budget for child participation in this country. Okay, the last time we had Kenya Children Assembly at the national level was 2023. There is no budget. Okay, so we are recommending that, number one, Treasury allocate money for child participation. One, not only Kenya Children Assembly, but in the budgeting making process. Make sure children are participating from the ward level all the way to the national level. Okay, number two, simplify these documents. Okay, even an adult will not be able to do 1,000 pages. It's too much. Simplify it in languages that children can be able to do. As Mtoto we're expert in that. We do them animation, we do cartoons, okay, we do them in podcasts, but simplify them in content that children can be able to understand. So, talking of children, we did speak to children, and for this press conference, we said we cannot come and speak on behalf of children. So, we collected children voices because they're in school, and this is what the children had to say.
Thank you so much. As part of a child-centric organization in Kenya, once again, thank you. And as part of child-centric organizations in Kenya, and Mtoto News is an organization that believes in child participation, first of all, we want to thank the government for ensuring and being open to the idea of including children in public participation forums. And last week, between 15th of May to 17th of May. And this is in accordance with different legal frameworks, both nationally and internationally. First, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, where in Article 12, we're provided with child participation. Also looking at the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, at Article 7, which provides for freedom of expression, where child participation is included. And lastly, the Children's Act 2022 of Kenya, Section 28, which allows for children to participate. And so with regards to this, we talked to children and got their views with respect to the above subject matter on the budget in Kenya. And their views were very clear, they were heartfelt and focused on issues that most of them are impacted with in their day-to-day lives. And what we got from this is that it demystified the fact that children have no clue whatsoever on what budgeting is. And so we've heard of the conversation around the 1,000-page document and this many pages. And so we as an organization, Mtoto News, tried to talk to children, but then we also provided for them to have an understanding of what this conversation is. We created a child-friendly document, and you can find this document in our website, www.mtotonews.com. And so this is what the children had to say. And their issues were, what they talked about was issue-based. And one of the things they talked about is the access to basic needs. And the children are looking at how do we get access to basic needs. And one of them is food, one of them is clean water. And what have you as a government done to ensure that in all these challenges that you're facing with regards to the above mentioned issues and the basic needs that we have as children, what have you done to ensure that you're increasing the budget of some of these things? Because they look at the comparison between the previous year and this particular year, the budget, and some of this, there was a reduction in most of these basic needs that they as children need on a day-to-day. The other one was education, and just before us, we had the Elibumbora working group making presentation on different issues around education, based from school meals to teachers to even the infrastructure within the schools. And so the children expressed a strong desire to have improved learning facilities. They also talked about living in a digital world where we are talking about computers, where we are talking about CBC, which is coming to revolutionize everything. So they're talking about how do we ensure that this is working for us in the different school groups that we have, from the primary to the junior secondary and also to the senior secondary. Children also talked about safety and protection and inclusion. And we are looking at this from a violence against children point of view. and my colleagues have talked before me, they mentioned that we need to have something, we need to have a program on violence against children, and this needs to be adequately funded. So just so we can see how can we protect our children, how can we ensure that when we're working with the different stakeholders, most importantly the Directorate of Children's Services, how can we ensure that they're at the forefront and they're acting as fast as they need to in ensuring that they are responding to issues and children are protected whenever some of these things are happening. We also talked about improved infrastructure in school and support systems. And children are talking about how can we ensure that we have budget for things that are able to have them work well and go to school well and go to have the right infrastructure and have the right support systems whenever it comes to school. And children are also talking about, one of the issues they're talking about is they need to be supported. And this is based on something that we all know. We're having a conversation around this. And May being the Mental Health Awareness Month, they want to talk about how can we ensure that as a country, we prioritize and budget for issues around mental health. And so they were talking about this, and also in relation to their talents and in relation to how they can also work and be in school and also support their co-curricular activities. But then in conclusion, I want to mention that the voices of children from across Kenya are united in their call for national budget that prioritizes them and the different issues that they're talking about. They urge the government to listen to their concerns and to take concrete actions that will ensure that every child in Kenya has the opportunity to learn, to be healthy, to feel safe, and to realize their full potential. On behalf of the children of Kenya, we respectfully submit these priorities for consideration, both in this particular budget and also in the subsequent budgets in the subsequent years. So let's work together to ensure that we are all working together for our children. And I just want to leave you with this quote from Nelson Mandela. He said that there can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way it treats their children. So this is a challenge to Kenya. This is a challenge to the members of parliament, and this is a challenge to the executive. How are we treating our children, and how does this show or reflect how our society is? Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Clapping for you, right? Just remain seated, because in case of any area that requires clarification, any questions, we want to start with it. Is there any question? If you have a question, just introduce yourself and ask. Jennifer will guide us on the respondents. Any question? Looking at, yes.
Nitaongea kwa lugha ya taifa. Kwa majina ni Kelvin kutoka Mtoto News. Nina swali kwa Mtoto News. Mmezungumza kuhusu kushirikisha ama kuipiga jeki serikali to participate kwa mambo yanayohusu watoto. Tuliona mwezi wa 3 na mwezi wa 5 watoto kutoka kaunti tofauti za Kenya wakija kwa African Children's Summit iliyokuwa inafanyika hapa Kenya, kisha wakaenda South Africa kwa main summit ya African Children's Summit. Je, mapendekezo yenu ni yapi kwa serikali kupiga jeki midahalo kama hiyo inayohusu watoto?
Asante, tunaweza chukua nyingine kama haya, tuanze na hiyo.
Asante sana Kelvin kwa swali lako, na nina jibu moja. Kwa masuala hayo yote, watoto wameeleza na wametuonesha kuwa wanataka kushirikishwa, na jambo moja nataka kusema kwa shughuli ambayo ilifanyika wiki iliyopita ya public participation, tuliona kuwa ni kaunti 11 peke yake ambazo zilihusishwa kueleza na watoto kuweza kujiongelelea kwa hili swala la bajeti. Na recommendation yetu kama Mtoto News na kama shirika ambazo zinafanya kazi na watoto ni kuwa kama tunaweza ongeza area na pesa ambazo zitaweza ensure that watoto wetu wote katika nchi mzima kwa jambo moja ama lingine wanaweza kuhusishwa na wanaweza kuongelelea kuparticipate na kuhusika katika swala kama hili la bajeti na masuala mengine ambayo yanajitokeza ambayo yana affect watoto. Itakuwa ni vyema kuwa watoto waweze kuhusishwa kabisa kwa nchini kote, na isiwe tu Nairobi kwa mfano ama kaunti ambazo zimechaguliwa ndio watoto peke yake wanaweza kuhusishwa kwa masuala haya. Lakini serikali iwapo inaweza weka kando ili watoto wote katika nchi yetu yote, na tunajipata katika dunia ambayo inaishi kwenye dijitali, na tunasema kwamba sio lazima tuweze kukuwa na hizo mikutano kwenye physical spaces peke yake, lakini tunaweza tumia mambo kama the digital world, the digital space and platforms kuensure ya kwamba watoto tunasikia sauti zao, na si kusikiza sauti zao peke yake, kwa sababu tumesikiza sauti za watoto kwa muda mrefu sana, lakini mambo ambayo wanaongelelea ambayo yanawa affect, tunaweza kuensure ya kwamba watoto hawa mambo yote ambayo wanasema tunaweza kutilia maanani na tunaweza kufanya kazi ili kuensure that masuala yote ya watoto yanaweza kutiliwa maanani na yanaweza kufanyika ambavyo wanahitaji in consultation with them. Asante.
Ningependa kuongezea kidogo kwa yale ambayo yamesemwa na mwenzangu. Alipokuwa akizungumzia maoni ya watoto ambayo tuliyakusanya tulipokuwa tukizungumzia bajeti, tuligundua kuwa watoto mara nyingi hawana ujuzi wa mambo ambayo yanaendelea katika maisha yao. Kwa hivyo tungependa kuhimiza serikali kuelimisha watoto mwanzo kabisa kuhusu mambo ambayo yanaendelea katika jamii yao hivi sasa, ndiposa waweze kuyazungumzia kwa uzito. Pia ni muhimu kuwapatia watoto nafasi ya kuzungumzia maneno haya. Ukiwafunza, haina maana kuwafunza lakini usiwapatie nafasi ya kuzungumzia maneno haya. Kwa hivyo ni muhimu pia serikali iwape nafasi ya kuzungumzia maneno ambayo yanawahusisha kimaisha. Pia kama Mtoto News tunakubali kuwa huwezi kusaidia mtoto kuweza kuzungumzia maneno ambayo yanahusisha jamii bila kushika mkono ya yule ambaye anamtunza nyumbani. Kwa hivyo pia tunahimiza serikali kufunza wale wanaowatunza watoto umuhimu wa kuhusisha watoto katika midahalo ambayo yanawahusisha. Asante.
Thank you so much. Just to conclude, I know my colleague would just join in case there's any other matter that requires clarification, be it on education or what they have already mentioned for the child protection. You realize that as a country, we have a commitment to ensure that every program we do is child sensitive. I think Elijah did mention the aspect of the principles that the Treasury made available and the criteria that was supposed to be looked at when determining how much should be allocated where. We say that there should be child sensitive but also gender responsive. Having looked at what we have seen here, our verdict would be that they fall far short, and we would like them to rejig the aspects which are being contained or which are contained in our memoranda, which I did indicate to you that we'll be submitting to Parliament just after this. Is there an area that requires further clarification? In German, in Portuguese, in Arabic, we have all the speakers here. In French, we are okay? Thank you so much for your time. Oh, okay, sorry. Yes, just a name and a question. Yes, yeah.
Just general inquiry. Kenya's education sector has been turned over
Thank you so much. Your question is valid, vital. I was actually trying to get back to where the infrastructure issue was. If you look at the program budget estimate that we have now, for instance, you'll find that under infrastructure, there's an indication that we have budgeted for 25 schools, primary schools, infrastructure. How many schools do we have in Kenya? We have over 26,000, isn't it? Just the public schools I'm talking about. But if you see the way in which then we do the targets and the budgets, some you'll find that within that budget document you'll find 400 schools. You'll find that those kind of figures. So yes, we have a huge budget, but the details, they say the devil, no, I don't want to name the devil in this, in our conversation here, but they say there's certain things which, when you get to the details, you realize they are actually not aligned. So when they are not aligned, then you start wondering. And in our nature, whenever we ask, you'll be told that, of course, then the ministry would ensure that those are addressed, but most importantly, that there's some CDF that would be helping to bridge that gap to construct certain classrooms. So we say within our main budget, we hope that we'll get there someday, but within our main budget, we should be more specific that whenever that budget is being generated, specific needs, if it is the infrastructure, we do not budget for 25 schools. And Ndugu Elijah can quickly even give me the budget code for that, so that you can see why you're saying we allocate a lot of money, but then children are still learning under trees, because that money is not specifically directed to construct those classrooms. The same way that we direct money and say we'll be dealing with issues of the teachers, but then you realize that the teachers they are talking about are intern teachers. And of course, I think you've already been informed that our courts pronounce themselves very clearly that Kenyan law does not allow TSC to recruit teachers as interns, because they only register qualified and trained teachers. So those are the gaps that we are saying. And indeed, we have pointed them out in our comprehensive memoranda that we are submitting. We hope they'll be able to correct them in this case. Yeah? Has that helped? Is there any colleague of mine having any last word? Something that we have pointed out? Yes, please. Can you join me just here quickly? Just, I mean, she's, I don't want to say Gen Z. Just rush over here. The point will grow as you come. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just give the 1 minute just to respond to that.
No, I had a question for you.
Wow. Okay, fine. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me sit here.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
First, I want to appreciate what you people have done with, the memorandum.
Yes.
But I want to ask you what you think about the issue on sanitary towels for girls.
Yeah.
Because this matter is not specified in the budget, and it is key in the girl child's ability to participate in her education. So what are your recommendations around this?
Thank you. I would have been more comfortable having less of our colleagues also come, but I'll respond to this. Why? Because one, look at what constitutes capitation, right at the primary school level and at the secondary school level. Within that space, you'll find that a component of that capitation is supposed to meet the needs, specific needs of children with special needs and specific needs of girls. What are some of the specific needs of girls in school? The sanitary towels. I think we've discussed this in other spaces where we indicate that some of the problems that we encounter is that there are pronouncements, and a lot of this, for instance, what you consider to be provision of sanitary towels, as of now, our parliamentarians have lumped it together that NGAF will be dealing with such matters. But you know that the decision by the Supreme Court also challenged the apportionment of those resources there. So we would have wished to see them mainstreamed more specifically and clearly the specific needs of each of these learners as identified by the stakeholders and as identified by the learners themselves. I think the Total News has told you that these children have voices. They vocalize some of the things they want to see done. Unfortunately, their voices somehow sound hollow, because if you do not act on them, then there's a big problem. So among the things we are recommending, in fact, the reason why we were talking about ensure that we are more specific on what constitutes that capitation that you are emitting. We want it to be broken down so that we are able to see the component that goes even for the sanitary towels, because I think that is the specific thing you're asking. And Ukarani, do you have any additional comment?
Not really. I think mine would be just on the recent issue of
1 minute.
mine would just be on the issue of capitation. It's really, we really need to ensure that actually the amount of capitation going to schools is adequate. We're seeing there's a big deficit. What we're recommending is 41 billion to ensure that every learner is able to comfortably enjoy learning. Recently, there's been an issue where stakeholders have been saying if capitation is not signed to schools as soon as possible, schools are actually working with learners with special needs may close down. This is an issue that actually the Union of Teachers addressed yesterday. It's a very alarming issue. A lot has been done to ensure that learners with special needs are in schools. So any threat that is going to threaten learners with special needs to continue with their learning is something that should be addressed very fast. So capitation to these schools should actually be arriving before the learners get there, because these are the monies that are actually helping these heads of schools pay the support staff and actually get some of the things that are required to ensure that learners with special needs stay in school. So I would wish to actually urge those, I think the Treasury and other people, to ensure that capitation is addressed, to ensure that every learner is in school and actually prepared. The teaching staff is prepared to handle them.
Thank you so much.
The matter of learners with special needs dropping out of school, with the efforts that have been made to ensure that they're in school, is now coming up as a threat.
Thank you. I'll just sum it in one sentence, that AI, they seem to integrate that in the teacher training component, but not specifically provided for, like you've seen, we've mentioned the aspect of the primary school teachers that do not have that support. So they basically are missing out on it. But it is one area that we need to focus on. As an element, digital technology, AI and all that, as an enabler in learning. We would have wished to see that it is given more prominence, but we hope that it will be grown. For now, we've responded more to the specific provisions in the budget they have given for education, where they are indicating just in terms of how they'll be able to train teachers and upscale them. They have generally instated the technology or the ICT component in that. That is the level. that has been reflected. But our recommendations would make them start thinking on providing for such needs. Because anyway, AI is with us even as we speak now. I know some of you have phones that are recording and even translating this into other languages. Is that not the case? So thank you very much.
Before we finish, just
yeah.
the last one, I'm just thinking out loud.
Yes, please.
We have given our recommendations.
Yes.
What happens if the people you're calling to adopt these recommendations don't see the light of day? Are there alternative means or alternative ways that maybe you feel or you think what you've raised is going to be also addressed through other channels if what you recommended is not going to see the light of day?
Let me sit there. I hope this is going to be the final, because I know we say that one. We are now borrowing time. We are 15 minutes past. Our role as civil society and as researchers and as advocates for what we believe in is to highlight this. The decision makers are actually in Parliament and some are in the executive. We indicated to you how we have been engaging them right from the start. If by the time we engage them and then we see that they have not met the specific expectations we had, we just turn our heads and say, now we'll not engage. We would not have even called you here. Because Elijah took you through that process. Right from last year, we were engaging. We continue to engage. The moment they'll not be able to portion some of this as we have recommended, we'll still roll that into the new phase of the next budget making. You know, as soon as the current budget is concluded, the next phase begins. But should they also incorporate, we'll also be keen to monitor and keep track to see how the implementation of that budget takes place. Accountability, in other words, because you can also not just be allocating and then money is being wasted. So as those dealing with child protection, safeguarding and all that, those dealing with realizing of the right to education for the child and everyone in Kenya, we will not tire. We will continue producing the evidence and imploring the decision makers to do the right thing. By the way, I think just in conclusion, though I say it only one sentence, but in conclusion, you know, the budget making process is take it back to your family. It is just like agreeing on how do we utilize the resources here so that people are okay, the welfare is taken care of. You start by saying we need all this, then you say, now who will help us do that? We have some employees. We have the groundsmen and all that. The parliamentarians are our groundsmen. These are our employees. So if we are telling them what should be done and then they fail to do that, I think there should be another reality check Kenyans should put on them. Should be demanding that, no, we do not want wastage of budgets, misallocation. We want you to prioritize, and prioritize for the child, prioritize for education, because if it is your family and you just decide to bring bags and bags of dry maize, and even they want to be roasted, and the children are there, how will they feed? So we just want them to be a little more sensitive, but we'll continue reminding them, and we walk that journey. We may not pronounce ourselves now, but at each and every moment, because we'll go out there to check, are they mopped out, these children to be back in school? If not, we'll still raise that alarm. We'll go back there and check, have they recruited the teachers that were supposed to be recruited? If not, we'll still raise that alarm. We'll not give up on that. And not just us alone. I know many people out there are also doing it. Otherwise, thank you so much. Let us call it a session. And thanks again for your patience. And to my colleagues who made this possible, thank you so much also. Did you say that the lunch is ready somewhere? How is it to be accessed? They should be having a voucher for us, eh? Yes. Yeah, so please just ensure you get a voucher before you go there. And I hope that because for the record purposes, it would be good that they sign that. Did they? Was there something circulated? Is there anybody who hasn't signed?